And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, the Intrepid Three in the studio. That's John King. I'm old, what's his name? And the fabulous Walt Kero.
Hey, thank you. Great morning.
Kero Byington and Associates.
Yes. And since we last met, I aged a year.
He's also the fifth person to throw his hat in the ring for the presidential nomination this week.
The 65th?
Yeah. Wow. Congratulations on that.
Oh,
a lot of people missed that coverage.
But he has not had us to sing his nomination song.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, except for, one thing. I haven't gotten the approval of the spouse. And that puts me in, that's news to me. So.
Well, I have a friend who used to gamble a lot. And he said, I don't worry about the IRS. I worry about informing the MRS.
And with good reason.
You could give your passionate speech about your journey from the doghouse to the White House. And that might, that took some hearts out there. I think a lot of people would identify with that.
Yeah. In my case, it'd be the outhouse. The White House.
I come to you with ink-stained fingers from doing all these tax returns over the years to give myself to the people of America as a candidate for president of these great United States.
How's the American version of Slumdog Millionaire. Yeah.
All right. So, aside from all that, how are you? Well,
I'm doing wonderful.
And happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
you.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was...
Now, look at all the stuff you brought with
I got
you.
such a pile of stuff here. We're going to start out talking about the one percenters, like the Clintons and whatever, and then we'll talk about the Clintons later.
I think John and I are like the 78th percenters, but I'm not sure.
I'm trying to crawl out of the 90th percentile.
Anyway.
We thought we would, throw out some bait and see if we can get some callers to get wired up about this. But in December of 2013, there was an article came out from the Daily Signal. And for those folks out there, Daily Signal's tied in with the Heritage Foundation.
Okay.
Anyway, those folks do a pretty good job.
They're a think tank.
I think Rob has referred to those folks quite a few times. But there was new data at that time, a couple of years ago, from the Congressional Budget Office that was kind of throwing aspersions on President Obama and his Buffett rule and all that stuff, that the 1% aren't paying their fair share. Yeah. Anyway, the CBO kind of just says, that's not quite right. And they were talking about the Buffett rule would require families earning more than $1 million a year to pay an effective tax rate of 30%. And what the CBO came up with is that's pretty much in effect. If you think about it right now, the max tax rate on married couples filing joint is 39.6%, and you're going to reach that at about $400,000. So, already, even before you hit $1 million, you're at 40%. Now, you got deductions and whatnot, but, they're talking about that the effective tax rate was like 30%. The top 1% of income earners pay almost three times what you and I are paying, because we're in that 78%, right? We're the
and of course, I hear from across the land, when you make a pause there, I think a lot of people are saying, as well they should, because they're the lucky ones. They're the ones that got shined on by the powers that be, and they've got more money, and they should be able to afford to just keep pushing it into the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah, but for God's sake, they're paying it.
Okay, all right.
Already.
Okay.
It's not like it's fiction. Okay. They're paying it, and I don't do a lot of tax returns for one percenters, but I do some.
Okay.
And
they pay tax. I hate to dispel that myth.
Well, they pay some of their taxes, but they pay them. Well, for example, George Soros. It recently came out that one of the ways he made a lot of his money was by deferring the payment of taxes. Mm-hmm. Basically, it would take investments into his different portfolios or management schemes, and then he would defer them. So he's going to get hit in the future, but he's been making money for the past, 8 years or something like this on deferring these investments into his portfolios. So, I don't know. Eventually, probably he'll pay tax.
But isn't Soros a currency guy? Doesn't he buy and sell currency?
He's one of those money changers.
Right, yeah.
No,
Throw
that's-
him out of the temple.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
why I use that phrase, is
Okay.
because he dang near did England under with, he really raised a lot of cane with the pound.
Messing around with a pound sterling. Huh?
Yeah, and that was quite a few years ago. But he came out, he made a lot of money, and what does that money do? It buys influence.
So CNBC recently did a poll on millionaires, and how they would vote, and it was a kind of interesting turnout. In the matchup, the top four, or people in the top four group, were Hillary, as well as Jeb Bush. Those two are in the top group. The other two will be kind of surprising, I think, to some.
Now, we talking millionaires for Hillary here, or which one? Are we
Yeah,
looking at?
that's it. Go ahead and play that little clip.
Millionaires for Hillary. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here you go.
But Hillary Clinton is also the favorite candidate of millionaires. The CNBC Millionaire Survey showed that in a race with former Governor Jeb Bush, Hillary wins the millionaire vote 53 to 47. Clinton wins 91% of millionaire Democrats, 13% of Republican millionaires, and 57% of independent millionaires. Now, looking at the broader field of a dozen candidates, Hillary also wins, with Jeb coming in second, followed by Elizabeth Warren and Chris Christie coming in fourth. Now, the most important issue for millionaires in this upcoming election, taxes and government spending, followed by political gridlock and foreign policy. You can read more on the CNBC Millionaire Survey on CNBC.com.
I did read more. They polled 750 different millionaires to get those results. I was kind of surprised. What did you think, Walt? Did you think most millionaires would end up voting for Hillary?
In some cases, I would. It depends on what the quid pro quo is going to be, or the perceived quid pro quo.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on. Are you telling me that you believe that someone with the character and the quality of a Hillary Clinton, okay, who would expect something, would give something back to millionaires who donated to her campaign, would give the precious gift of access and influence away for simple, filthy mammon?
Would I think that? I would suspect it. I don't know if I would get to the point of thinking that, but I would think that the possibility is there.
And of course, nobody else has ever done that, obviously. So
No,
It would be
and but I mean, let's expand that, because
sure.
you're talking about directly to Hillary, but then you also got to talk about her foundation.
Oh, we need to get into that.
Oh, yeah,
It just-
ouch.
we're
We'll
up-
do that later.
We're up against a break, but
I gotta pay the bills. That's what Bill said. He was asked about that, whether or not he deserves millions for his speech.
And I just got to say this because it's time. Who cares about income when somebody else is paying your bills? You don't need income if somebody else is paying your bills.
that we're dead broke coming out of the White House. What are we going to do? We're going right back after this quick timeout. Pa! All right, we're back on Talkback, 721-1290. As a drummer, I like that song. All right,
Yes.
That's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Walt Kero joining us here in studio. He's our resident CPA. And we're just beginning to dive in, if you will, to we began a discussion a little bit about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
The millionaire's choice to be president. So those of you who are, the members of the, Occupy Wall Street and hate the one percenters and all that kind of stuff, will you remember come election day that the millionaire's favorite candidate is Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, who'd have thought?
But perhaps she's just the candidate for all people, Walt.
Including the one percenters?
Yeah, the one percenters and the 0%ers.
She's the big uniter.
I don't know.
Speaking of 0%ers, I think that might be the total number of people that voted in the recent school board elections here.
Yes,
in Missoula.
yes.
Is that all?
Well, we are going to be checking with Rebecca Connors a little bit later and find out what the actual voter turnout was for the school trustee elections, because they put out a plea just the other day saying we've received less than 12%, 14% of the available voters and the ballots they sent out.
Yeah, well, that brings up an interesting point on ballots and elections and all that stuff, because it used to be, if you wanted to pass a mill levy or a special levy for a school building or something, you need to have 40% of the vote from the prior general election.
Really?
For it to take effect. So if you didn't meet that threshold, you couldn't increase taxes on the folks.
And I believe it used to be as well that when a school district, failed, a levy failed, they were able to go back again and again and again until it passed.
Oh, sure.
But I don't think that happens anymore. Let's get Craig on the line. Good morning, Craig.
Hey, morning, guys.
Hi, Craig.
Yeah, it didn't seem like things were going too fast there, so I wanted to call and consent.
Okay.
Thank you for taking pity on us, Craig. What's up?
It's interesting. The Missoulian today talking about the recycling inabilities of the Missoulians. The good old liberal area can't do as they say, They can't even recycle their doggone trash. Okay, this right-winger does. But we'll see you guys later.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting you would say that because directly beneath my feet, right here, we have a gigantic box that is filled with old AP news copy, and what we do is we take it down to our big box, and then the recyclers come every couple of weeks to take our big box and recycle it.
And it's right next to the box full of Oreo wrappers and Cheez-It wrappers, which have been licked clean, I believe.
Are not recyclable. but anyway.
Yeah, but all that paper is pulp, and your question is how much fiction is in all that pulp?
We could talk about the crack hour meeting tonight, but we won't do that. All right, so tell us what else you got there, because we're talking about finances and money and stuff.
Jump into the foundations, Clinton foundations and whatnot. The CBO report that the Heritage Foundation through the Daily Signal was popping up is that the middle class, families earning more than $71,400, remember that's families, paid an effective tax rate 11.5%. So, we got the 1%ers, and that whole big group, according to the CBO, was paying 30%. Or just under 30%.
Now, are you talking about effective tax rate or the amount of taxes that were set in?
The effective tax rate. And what you're getting at there is you look at their income and you look at the actual out-of-pocket dollars they paid, because by the time you take deductions and credits and exemptions and all that stuff into account, you pay out X dollars, and you compare that X dollars paid out of tax liability versus your income. That's the effective tax rate. So, middle class is paying 11.5% federal, and the wealthy, the 1%, those folks are paying 30%, or just under 30%.
So just about 3 times as much.
About 3 times as much. And so it begs the question, is that enough?
Yeah.
Are they paying their fair share? From my point of view, from what I see doing tax returns for 40 years, I would say yes. But that's only my opinion and my point of view.
So allow me to throw this in there because, again, you do taxes all the time. So why the continued criticism? Like people like Bernie Sanders, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. You got more. They've got too much money. Give it up.
Yeah, well, I think the reason for all that is lack of knowledge. Ignorance. Uneducation, whatever, because, unless you know people that are in the 1% or you see those tax returns and whatever, you're not going to know. You just don't know. You don't have the knowledge.
I actually have a quote from Bernie Sanders when he was on the he basically walked out of the Senate, gave a speech about running for the presidency, and then walked back inside.
Would you like
but if you want to play it, he does talk about taxes and the 1% a little bit here. You can get it from his own mouth.
So here we go.
Right now, in terms of issues, we have a Republican Party with virtually few exceptions that does not even recognize the reality of climate change, let alone that it is caused by human activity, let alone that the scientific community tells us this is the major global environmental crisis that we face. And I want to see this nation lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Real unemployment in America is not 5.5%. If you include those people who have given up looking for work, people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time, real unemployment is 11%. We need to create millions of jobs, and the best way to do it is to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. And I've introduced legislation to do just that, create and maintain 13 million jobs. In my state of Vermont and throughout this country, young people, bright, young, able-keep kids cannot afford to go to college, and others are leaving school deeply in debt. In Germany, countries around the world, they understand that you tap the intellectual capabilities of young people, you make college tuition in public universities and public colleges free. That's my view as well. Wow. So there are enormous issues facing this country. Now let me conclude by saying this, and I say this to the media. I've never run a negative ad in my life. I've been in many campaigns, and you ask the people of Vermont, they will tell you Bernie Sanders has never run a negative ad. I hate and detest these 30-second ugly negative ads.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I must have edited it out. He does go, one of the lines that he has there, I'm calling from memory, but he said something like the 1% has more money than the rest of the 90%. And this is something we can't abide here in the United States.
So,
but basically, he's looking at what seems to be, and a lot of people would say, is imbalance in the system, and why not just scoot some of that over to the middle and further on down and balance things out.
So basically he's talking about income redistribution, right?
Basically.
And that would have to be forced income redistribution, because the people who earned that money or invested and were able to make that money through investments or whatever legal means that they used are not exactly going to say, why, sure, let me grab my checkbook. I'll just start writing checks. They're not going to do that, are they, Walt?
No, they're not.
So.
And Bernie got straight A's in college. Well, I didn't get straight A's. Maybe he can give me some of his A's.
We're going to come right back. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Now, Walt Kero, our guest, and we're talking taxes and finances and money and policy and all that good stuff. We want you to join us. A little bit of money song right here. 721-1290 is our number, and that's John King. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in the studio, of course, Walt Kero from Kero Byington and Associates. We're going to get Tyler on in a moment. Go ahead, John.
Kitty on Facebook says, over the top about Hillary being the champion of the average person and all the taxes that each and every one that pays more than they should. Can you comment on the death tax? We pay for our taxes, and then when our parents go to a better place, why not get double dipping? So let's talk about the death tax real quick. It's something that came up recently. It's being opposed, I believe, by Daines and Zinke, but it's something that I think Tester has been marginal on. I don't know.
Yeah, well, let's throw this on the table first. Right now, under federal estate tax law, a married couple can exclude about $10.6 million from estate tax. That is going to take care of about 99% of everybody in this country. So why worry about that? Now, if you get rid of the estate tax, everybody, those 99% of the people in this country will now experience higher capital gain taxes on the income tax side of our tax structure. How does that happen? Well, when people die, assets in their estate get stepped up in value for tax purposes to the fair market value at the date of death. So if you've got Aunt Bertha, who's got, well, let's say she had some stock in XYZ company that she bought because she was an employee of the company for 40 years. And she bought it over 40 years, and she built up a nest egg. And that her cost in that was, say, $1,000, but it's worth $1 million. So you have this huge step up in basis under the current law. If she dies and you don't get that step up in basis, the beneficiaries get to pay the capital gain tax on $999,900, whatever it happens to be. So by getting rid of the death tax, you're going to increase income taxes. Most people don't understand that. And if they knew that was going to happen, they may pause and say, oh, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that. You also have to think about how on God's green earth can you keep track of what Aunt Bertha paid for that stock 40 years ago. That's one of the practical reasons we have the death tax is we reestablish our tax basis in those assets that we receive upon the death of a loved one or of a decedent.
So are you a pro death tax guy?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell you what, Tyler, I'm so sorry. We have run out of time at this hour. But if you want to hang on, we'll put you on first, right after out of the box in the 9 o'clock hour. Walt Kero is going to be with us for another hour. So if you have questions or comments, we're talking about all sorts of really interesting things. If you have a financial question, something about taxes or whatever from your tax, maybe you got a letter from the IRS and you're don't know quite what to do about it.
Oh, we can talk about that too.
Yes, okay. Hope you'll join us for another hour of Talk Back coming up between 9 and 10. Stay with us. Did he just say kick acid and gas?
Yeah.
That's what a great line. All right. John King, Peter Christian, our good friend Walt Kero joining us from Kero Byington and Associates. And Tyler has been waiting a long time. Tyler, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I fell asleep.
What's on your mind?
Oh, those are good commercials, by the way.
Yeah.
Before the top of the hour, you guys played a little clip about Hillary Clinton's approval rating for
Millionaires. Yeah, she's the millionaires candidate.
Right. So, and I was driving home, and it made me think of a story. My wife worked for the federal government here in Missoula, and at the time, I proposed to her the penny plan. Do you guys know what the penny plan is?
Walt is shaking his head.
Is that the one that Sean Hannity keeps talking about?
Yeah, it's the federal government takes 1 penny out of every dollar it spends for the next 6 years, and it balances its budget.
Right.
As long as it freezes spending where it currently is, doesn't continue to increase spending.
Mm-hmm.
I told my wife about it real quick, and she said no. And I said, why not? And she goes, because I work for the federal government. And I said, and she goes, well, that would mean that I would have 1 penny out of every dollar taken out of my paycheck, and that's not cool. And it struck me as interesting that, maybe a year after she left that job and worked at a different job, I asked her the same question again, and she said, yeah, sure, that makes sense, right? So here's my conundrum. You have all these millionaires on the Democratic side. It was over 90% of those surveyed on the Democrat side would vote for Hillary.
Of course.
And you have Hillary, who is the second richest, according to CNN yesterday, the second richest candidate in the field that is currently out today, out and about campaigning.
So who's the richest?
The Carla Fiorina.
Oh, Carly Fiorina.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like 80 million, and Hillary Clinton's like 15.3 million or something like that.
Gotcha.
So here you have a millionaire who's going out and campaigning and saying, I'm going to raise taxes on the rich because it's not fair. The rules are stacked in the favor of the people who are rich. And you have rich people who say, yeah, I'll vote for her. So what can we really conclude? We can conclude that she has no intention of raising taxes and has convinced these rich people to vote for her because she's not going to do anything that she says she's going to do.
I think you can be pretty sure she'll raise taxes.
Oh, she'll talk about it.
You don't think that she would raise taxes?
No, she strikes me as she's learned from her husband. Demagoguery.
Exactly. It's all talk just to get in. She'll talk about raising taxes. She'll talk about the inequality. She'll talk about transferring wealth.
And you know what's going to happen, Travis? She'll talk about that, but then if she, and I believe she will be, I've already got a standing bet that I believe that she will be elected president. She'll move into the White House and she'll say, I've got to deal with a Republican Senate and Congress, and the wonderful things I want to do, they just won't let me do, and it's all their fault, but I tried.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have to watch the China.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks for the call, man.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
All
All right.
reference to the exit of the Clintons from the White House, in which they stole or took some of the White House jobs.
I believe it was appropriated.
Yeah, and it was returned to a certain extent.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, quite a bit of it was returned.
Well, it was redeemed from a rummage sale a little bit later.
It was returned after they were called out for taking it.
Yeah. All right, let's get Dave on the line. Dave, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. Oh, about rich people paying 40% taxes. I don't feel sorry for them. I wish I paid 40% too, right along with them.
Well,
nobody's feeling sorry for them. Yeah. The point is, are they paying their fair share? And I would say, yes, they are.
Well, they're not going poor, are they? Is their tax rate pushing them into the poorhouse?
Actually,
is
in America,
the point of government to tax somebody into the poorhouse?
I'm just curious. Yeah, is that? Well, are they losing their money because of too much
Well,
tax?
allow me to switch that around a little bit, Dave. Is the government taxing you into the poorhouse?
No.
Because I have no idea what your income level is.
I want to respond real quick to Dave's comment. One of the things that's interesting about American wealth is it does transfer. People move up into the Millionaires Club and out of it fairly frequently in America. So yes, people actually do drop out of the millionaire cycle. It's not an inherited wealth system where you're always going to be a millionaire as well as your benefactors or your inheritors.
I personally know of quite a few small business people who maybe earlier in their careers did very, very well, or perhaps did very, very poorly, but then learned lessons and got investors and risked their own wealth and started businesses that became successful, and they had a lot of money for a while. Maybe then their business failed. They lost a lot of money, and up and down they go, but they never quit. They kept at it, and that really is the essence of American small business capitalism. Am I right about that, Walt?
Yes. That I've seen it myself.
Okay.
Well, one more thing about recessions. Did you realize that the last 4 recessions have happened during Republican presidents, and that that's a good time for very smart, wealthy people to make money? Like Buffett made a lot of money off the last recession, so it's an opportunity if there's another recession.
Recessions are a good time for people to make money. Do you think that those Republican campaigns or candidates caused those recessions?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe, maybe not.
Well, and of course, every politician, whether let's say Jeb Bush wins the presidency, okay, he's going to be inheriting 8 years of Obama doctrine. And so it may take him a while to, if you will, revolutionize the way that America does business, just as President Obama had to change the way, that George Bush did business. So each one inherits the sins and the benefits of the other.
It's certainly true, though, that every president is blamed for a recession. It's just when it happens on their watch.
I disagree. I don't usually blame the presidents. I think usually the legislature is the one that is at fault.
Congress is the one that sets
and
policy.
When it comes to the most recent recession that we had, I blame the lack of control and constraint that we had on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
And when it comes to who made the decision not to monitor them more closely or put restrictions on them, I directly blame the Democrats because they didn't want to.
And that was all over Bill Clinton there.
And so that's my line of thought on that last recession.
Yeah.
Wait one moment here. Bush was president for 7 years before that happened.
Yes, and he along with many of the Republicans in the House, pushed for reforms of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. But you'll remember that the legislature was not dominated by Republicans all of his 4 years.
But he was the one that came out and said, I want everyone in the House, whether they can afford it or not.
You're right, and he does hold responsibility, I think, for pushing the housing crisis.
Right,
and
that was part of the whole process.
But there are a whole lot of people you can pin that one on, Dave, not just George W.
Yeah,
Bush.
you can go all the way back to Jimmy Carter on that for the Community Reinvestment Act.
Hey, we are out of time in this segment. Thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for your call. 721-1290. You got a question or a comment, give us a call, 721-1290. But, John, let's give away some stuff.
Even if you don't, you might not be a millionaire.
And it's free.
And you might not be voting for Hillary. You don't have to do either of those things in order to win coffee, free toast, and your
This is
choice
great. I don't have to say
from
a
the
word.
Rocket
Thank
Coffee
heavens.
today.
Yeah.
So give us a call, 721-1290 is the number. We've got free coffee for you waiting at the Rocket Coffee stand, which is in the Garden City Garden Supply, across from the Eastgate Shopping Center. It looks like my phone's already lighting up, so we'll go get those calls.
Go get them, and we're going to come right back and announce our winner. And, of course, our good friend Walt Kero joining us here in studio from Kero, Byington & Associates. By the way, that's Kero, in case you're wondering. And we're going to come right back with more in a moment. In case you're wondering, that kind of music is called ska.
Ska?
Yeah, ska, just in case you're wondering. All right, 721-1290. Bopping around here.
Yeah.
That's John King, Peter Christian, Walt Kero joining us in studio.
Well, actually, you skank to ska. That's the dance that you do.
Seriously?
Skank?
Yeah. Okay. Skank to ska.
Anyway, we got a call from Tracy. He says that if Peter is right and Hillary Clinton wins, that he is going to lose a listener, Peter, because Tracy will be moving out of the country.
The key question, where to?
But we do have one unwritten rule, okay, that if anybody, and this is the first time we've ever made this public, but I think it's important for us to do so. If anybody ever moves away from KGVO land, okay, and is no longer able to listen to our terrestrial radio,
Yeah.
all right, you are required by an unwritten rule that I just made up. No, seriously, you are required to, before you leave, recruit a listener to replace you.
Yes. I think that's a good rule.
I think it's the only way to live. And let's get Mike on the line. Mike,
Mike.
Thanks for holding. You're on. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a comment and a question. I can kind of understand the progressive tax structure because if you're a small family living on $20,000, the basics of life, the money that you spend on food and housing, electricity, that's out of proportion with a millionaire who doesn't even give it a second thought. So
it takes into account the ability to pay.
Right. Exactly, and the influence that taxes have on a person's life is affected. But is it true that there are a lot of low-income people who actually get more back from the federal government? I believe everybody should pay at least $5 in taxes, so they have.
I know it's true because I was in that position not too long ago.
Yeah, Mike, it's true because there's a bunch of stuff out there that causes that. The earned income tax credit is one of them, and that goes to taxpayers whether you're single, married, head of household, or whatever, and you have a child, or you can get it if you're low income and don't have any kids.
Yeah, let me give you a quick scenario. Let's say that you have a child, you are trying to pay for rent in Missoula, and you decide to become a real estate agent in 2010. You might find yourself in that situation like I did.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, this is experience talking.
Yeah.
And I had a quick question. I live in Washington. I'd hire you in a second, with an accountant with a sense of humor. That's cool.
Well, thank you.
But I filed an extension for the first time by mail on April 15th. There are a lot of people out there at the mailbox. It's kind of a party. But can I e-file once I get around to it in about 2 weeks? Can I e-file, and will the e-file actually beat the mail-in so the IRS thinks that I'm late on paying taxes?
No, you can e-file. You can e-file your 2014 tax return anytime between now and December 31st of 2016. The IRS will give you a couple of years to file, even though you would be late. Now, the question is do you get in trouble for filing late? Only if you owe. Okay?
Oh, I see.
Only if you owe them money, because if you have a refund coming, they'll sit on your money.
They'll send you such a nice thank you note for waiting.
Yeah. But you paper filed an extension, and by the way, these extensions are automatic, and you can, you have until October 15th under that extension. So whether you paper file it or you e-file the extension, doesn't matter. But you can always e-file your return. There are some exceptions, but most, 99% of the people can e-file their returns.
I was under the impression that I was going to get, even if I had a refund coming back, that if they didn't get my extension in time or got lost in the mail, that I'd be penalized 5% of any return, or is it 5% a year?
No, it goes like this, Mike. If you owe tax on your tax return, the penalty for failure to file is 5% per month for 5 months, or 25%. So because you got an extension, you avoid that failure to file penalty. So the 5% number is correct, but it's for 5 months, and it can grow to 25%. So if you owed $1,000, you would have a $250 late file penalty. Then they would also hit you with a late pay penalty, which is 1/2 of 1% per month up to 48 months, or 24%.
Wow.
So you can, and then add on regular interest. So the IRS can make the mafia look like a bargain if you're borrowing money.
Payday lenders are jealous.
Oh, God, you better believe it.
Yeah,
and plus, then they have the 600-pound gorilla behind them with the enforcement of collection.
Right.
So, but no, if you don't owe money, you have a refund coming. Even if you file late, there's no penalty.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the call. And we are up against a break. So, Susan and Sean, we're going to get your calls on. We have one line open. If you'd like to give us a call, we have one line, 721-1290. We're coming right back with more of Talk Back with Walt Kero in a moment. Okay, we're back on Talk Back. 721-1290 is the number. And let's continue on. Did you want to play this
I
thing?
kind of wanted to play this. I thought it was interesting. I thought
Okay.
I'd bring it up since we've got a bunch of presidential candidates out there. A lot of people are discussing this tax reform pledge. It's actually Americans for Tax Reform Pledge. You might also know it as the Grover Norquist Pledge.
Aha.
This was a comment by a Republican senator the other day, and I wanted to get Walt's take on it. My question after this clip is, do you think that candidates for the presidency should be signing this pledge? Anyway, here's the clip.
Well, another Republican is breaking ranks with the anti-tax crusader Grover Norquist, saying that addressing the nation's looming fiscal cliff takes precedence over Norquist's anti-tax pledge that many members of Congress signed years ago. Georgia Senator Saxby Chambliss telling a local TV station, quote, "I care more about my country than I do about a 20-year-old pledge. If we do it his way, then we'll continue in debt, and I just have a disagreement with him about that."
All right, so there you go.
Apparently, this pledge has two elements. I've never signed the pledge because I've never run for office. But I've been trying to look up copies of the pledge, and apparently it's different if you're at the federal level or if you're at the state level. But here's the two major things in both of them. Oppose any and all efforts to increase the marginal income tax rate for individuals and or businesses, and oppose any net reduction or elimination of deductions and credits unless matched dollar for dollar by further reducing tax rates. So what do you think?
Well, let's just come at this from this point of view. Under our current system of elections and government and the budgetary process, we will never get the budget under control as it is formulated now. Now, when Bill Clinton was president, we had that happen for a year or two. But it took successive tax increases to get there. So the question is I think Grover Norquist's tax pledge is a step in the right direction, but it's not going to. There's no guarantee that that's going to stay in place.
Now, what about a balanced budget amendment?
That may work, but it'll never get passed.
Okay.
Now, my dear departed brother, who passed on cancer back in 2000. My other brother and I were fishing with him up in Alaska, and we're sitting in this little skiff, 16-foot skiff on the ocean, just bouncing around. The halibut weren't biting at the time. My brother, who was pretty astute and pithy, said, "Walt, you know, the only way to make government efficient, and that's what we're after here, is to starve it." And I just started howling. I couldn't believe it. My brother's pretty eloquent, but the reason why is because under the current budget process, governments are driven. What's the driver? The driver is spending, because you reward spending your budget and you punish saving. In the private sector, Peter, you're not driven to spend, you're driven to save. If we could get government on the same driver,
sure,
we would have a chance.
So let me ask you this. Since you are a presidential candidate, we talked about that at the opening of the show.
Oh, my God. My wife has got to talk to you.
Do you think you could honestly sign the pledge if you were? Or would you say, no, I think we might have a situation where we need to raise taxes for the good of the country?
I'd have to read the pledge, but I'd probably sign it because there's a couple of escape hatches in the case of war. But, you hate to be tied down to anything. But right now, it's out of control.
Okay, let's get to the phones. Folks been waiting. And Sean, thank you for holding. You're on. Go ahead.
Hi, Walt, he's a smart guy, and my comment had to do exactly with what he's talking about. But you guys are bantering back and forth or talking with Dave about, was it Clinton's fault? Was it Bush's fault? Is it the Congress? Is it... who's causing the recession, the Republicans or Democrats?
There's enough blame to go around, I think.
Yeah, and what Walt is saying is exactly my point, is it's government. And we have to, as Americans, we have to shrink our government. And until people get that in their minds, it's not going to happen. And people they get all these class warfare and, oh, they've got this and we don't, and so they vote for people that are going to make their lives better. Ain't going to happen.
So do you think it's possible for our government, even at the city level, to go on a diet?
Yeah, impossible.
Yeah.
I sell to government agencies, and I know how their budgets work, and we've got money, we need to spend it. And It's ridiculous.
All right, Sean, thanks for the call, man.
I had a question for Walt.
Yes, go ahead.
And kind of goes along with this, but I make not a pretty paltry salary compared to a lot of people, but for about 35 years, invested in some stocks that have done really well, and it's worth quite a bit of money.
Good for you.
There's no way to get that money out without giving 30% of it, I think, to the government.
Yeah, is that in a retirement account or is it in a non-retirement account?
It's just stocks.
Oh, okay. So you have it in what we call a tax account at a brokerage house somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be locked into capital gains. Now the whole thing is if you pull that money out in a year where you have very little other income,
Sure.
then you can almost get it out tax-free. For example, I've had a farmer where I did a tax return for them. They had close to 60 or 80,000 of capital gains, and they paid absolutely no tax on it because of their farm losses and a net operating loss carryover. So it just depends on facts and circumstances at the given year. And in your position, you could do that with some tax planning. I can't guarantee it because you have to make sure you don't have much other income, whether it's from retirement or rentals or interest or wages and salaries. But if it was negligible, you can pull out some capital gain. And
sounds like you could use a pretty good CPA. There's one just standing right here in case you're interested there.
Well, I've thought of coming up and talking to Walt. So I'm
All right.
interested.
Well, I'll be glad to help you.
All right, thanks, Sean. Appreciate the call. We're up against a break. Alan and Christine, you guys are up next, and we have one line open. I know Susan was trying to get back on. We're going to be back with more of Talkback right after this. Hey, this is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. John King. I'm Peter Christian. Walt Kero joining us in studio, and I'm moving Susan up because she got inadvertently cut off. So, Susan, go ahead. You're on with Walt.
So, as I told John off air, I am technologically incompetent. I can't handle technology. But anyway, I'm going to tell Walt, because I've hired him as a CPA before, a cute CPA story or a cute tax story. Are you ready?
Oh, good. Yeah, go for it.
It's a fun story. Every April 15th, I buy something cute to give to everybody in the post office.
Yeah.
And a box of chocolates, because the people who are at the post office are also the same people that mail all of my books, so they know me on a very personal level daily. And this year I came in, I walked in with silk flower baskets that I had gotten at the Dollar Plus store. They were, like really cheap. They were $1, and I gave them to all of the post office guys and gals, and it was so much fun to see them laughing because they said, April 15th is always such a headache, and I want to give a shout-out to the Kent Street post office people because they're awesome.
Yeah. It used to be
Thanks, Susan.
before we had electronic filing, and I would get taxpayer booklets from all the clients, and I would save them. And then I would take them to the post office on the 15th April because there was always a line of people there, and sometimes they had forms there and sometimes they didn't. But I would just leave stacks of federal and Montana tax booklets in there. So, but that's gone by the wayside for the most part because of electronic filing.
Right, let's get
glorified mail carrier anymore.
let's get Alan on the line. Alan, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning, Walt.
Good morning, Al.
A while back, I did a little research. I wanted to find out how many people were paying federal income tax, and I found a figure that they said 141 million Americans file, but out of that, only 77 million of them actually pay.
Actually had liability?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do have a system that's unequal. I think that if you're going to be in this country, and if you make money in this country, everybody should pay some. It might that we could explain it in the terms that Thomas Paine said. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. And we have people that are receiving money for not doing anything, and as long as they can do that, they're going to continue to vote for people that are going to pay them for no purpose.
Yeah, you see a lot of that in Baltimore.
Yeah. I think one of the things that would change the attitude of the American people just from day to night would be to instantly stop the federal withholding and make everybody have to write a check on the 15th of April for what they owe.
Yeah. Peter's laughing and smiling. He's agreeing with you, Al. There's no doubt
You
about
do
that.
that 4 times a year, right?
I do it and anybody with a small business does it 4 times a year. But it's called estimated tax payments.
Yes.
And the other concept that we keep hearing is, and we heard Bernie Sanders talking about it today, wealth redistribution. Government cannot redistribute wealth. What government does when they try to redistribute wealth is they destroy wealth creation.
Well, they misunderstand the term wealth. You know, what is wealth?
Yeah.
Wealth is usually something that's either earned or inherited. Okay, most often earned. And so if you take money from me, I'm not giving you wealth. Okay, you're stealing from me, and I'm giving you something for nothing.
And we then esteem that too lightly.
I guess so.
And I want to quote Thomas Jefferson in his first inaugural. A wise and frugal government shall restrain men from injuring one another, shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's well stated.
That sounds like a great T-shirt. Thanks, Alan.
Needs a big T-shirt.
Yeah, we're up against a break. So, Christine, I know you have some really good comments to make. I don't want to cut you off, so if you'll hang on just a minute. We have 2 lines open. 721-1290 is our number. Walt Kero joining us from Kero Byington and Associates. We'll be right back with more Talk Back in a moment. Wow. 721-1290 is the number. 1-800-568-5309. And a hush falls over the audience as Walt Kero, presidential candidate, mounts the stairs.
Awesome,
comes
dude.
onto the dais. The lights come up. The crowd goes insane.
Jeez.
How's that? Pretty good.
Yeah.
Time for your saxophone solo.
Boy.
All right. And okay, Christine, try to top that.
Wow, that is quite the intro.
Oh, but I'm going to write off my dirty underwear.
I just have a little fun tax point that I thought I would make. That is, everybody talks about tax percentage rates that people pay, and nobody ever looks at the big picture. And this is my problem with the progressive tax system: is if the purpose is to pay for government. Okay, if it's not to punish people and not to redistribute wealth or whatever their goal is, if it's truly to pay for the government, did you know that regardless of what tax rates are, historically in the recent times, the government has only been able to collect 18% of GDP?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No matter what. Low rates, high rates, doesn't matter. They've always consistently collected 18% of GDP.
Right.
It does not matter what you do with tax rates. You'll get 18% of GDP.
Have they figured out why that is?
It's the Laffer curve. Hello.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Walt was just telling somebody that on the phone. Here, if you wait until you have a tax year when you have a loss and cash out your money, then you won't have to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
People modify their behavior when tax rates are high. So they still get 18% of GDP.
Yeah, and that
Across the
you're
board.
also got to
Doesn't matter
include
who's
the
president,
underground
doesn't
economy,
matter what
right?
the rates are.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Walt.
Excuse me, Christine. I was also going to say that also includes the underground economy. Whether you're a waitress who's not reporting all your tips, or you're an electrician or a plumber who's working off the grid, that's included in that 18%, right?
Yes, people change their behavior if the pain is too high. And so no matter what the government does, they're going to get 18% of GDP.
Okay, so then maybe we ought to have a budget that's limited to 18% of GDP.
And that's my point. You were talking about Clinton balancing the budget. He didn't balance the budget because he raised tax incomes. He balanced the budget because GDP was growing, so he had more tax revenue, still getting 18%, and because he did welfare reform and got government spending under 18%.
Which he was basically forced to do because he had a Congress that basically told him that's what he had to do.
And see, this is the argument for a flat tax. Economists look at this and they go, okay, no matter what we do, we're going to get 18%. Let's flat tax 18%.
Yeah, it's really funny about that welfare reform. He opposed it, and now, in
taking
retrospect, he
credit for it.
takes credit for it. That's great.
I balance the budget,
It's the truth statistically across the board. So the way you increase tax revenues is actually to grow GDP.
Right.
Now,
it does not matter what you do with the rate.
Now, a Democrat would say that the reason GDP grew was because of the economic stimulus plan of 1993 that Bill Clinton was in favor of and pushed through. So, pumping money into the economy in order to make it grow. He watered the soil a little bit,
Yeah, but what Christine is saying makes a lot more sense than what the progressives would say.
It's the facts. You could do 100% tax. You're still going to get 18% of GDP.
All right, Christine, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Christine.
Appreciate the call. Oh, that's a very, very interesting concept. Harry, good morning. Thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I hear people saying, well, we need a flat tax, there's fair tax. That would simplify things. I mean, it wouldn't. I mean, what you really want to simplify things, you do away with all deductions, all exemptions, and tax whatever income, at whatever percentage. If it's you get it through gambling, through whatever it is, at the same rate. That would simplify it.
Flat and fair tax both do that.
How simplify if I do 11% or 35%? That's not hard to figure out. I mean, you just multiply by 0.35 or 0.11. That's not complicated. It's all the deductions, all the other stuff, and that's stuff people will never give up.
Yeah, you're going to tax workman's comp?
You can tax any money coming in. I mean, if you want to simplify things, simplify it. I mean, it's the deductions. Do away with deductions, do away with exemptions.
Flat tax and fair tax.
You tax it. That's it. That's simple. How simple is that?
Real quick, flat tax and fair tax both do that.
They
simplify deductions as well.
Yeah, good luck on that. Who's going to say, well, mortgage, we can't, you can't deduct kids, you can't deduct mortgage, you can't deduct, donations to charities. That's all deductions. You have to do it with all that stuff, because if you don't, you get all deductions to charities. Well, what is a charity? How much can you deduct to a charity? On and on and on. So you simplify it, you do it with all that stuff, and it'd be simple. But people would hate it.
So allow me to ask you this, Harry. So what about nonprofit organizations, say like United Way or Boy Scouts or whatever? Would you eliminate that and say every organization, no matter what they do, who they serve, whether they make a profit or not, has to pay taxes?
If you want to simplify it, yeah. I mean, you want to simplify it, that's what you have to do.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it.
Okay, appreciate the call, and we're going to take a 1-minute break, and because I want to give Catherine and Tom plenty of time. This is a 1-minute timeout. This is our final timeout. We'll be right back. We are back on Talkback, 721-1290. All right. Yeah, you wanted to respond a little bit to the whole nonprofit thing, Walt.
Yeah, and this is going to be, talked about in the next 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, whatever. And as long as Hillary's running for president, this is going to be talked about. She's got this foundation going, and one of the problems with these foundations is self-dealing, because there's probably 50,000 references to self-dealing within nonprofits. And self-dealing is where the principals in the organization are having transactions with the entity. And as I mentioned earlier today, Hillary and Chelsea and Bill are probably not taking any salary out. But you've already heard reports that they're only paying 10% on the dollar in charity-type expenditure. So you got 90% of overhead. What is that going to? So that's going to beg an audit from the IRS.
So let me ask you a practical question.
Yes.
So one of the things that's come out in this whole Clinton Cash book that I believe actually is released today, one of the things that he tracked was the amount of money that was spent on like flying the Clintons around, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Expenses.
Which is fairly exorbitant for most nonprofits. When you take money out of a nonprofit and pay for a plane ride for yourself, is that considered to be self-dealing?
Yes, if it's for personal. But they will try to disguise it and say, well, this was for charitable purposes. But how can you have a charity when 10% of what you're spending goes for charity? So 90% goes to overhead and playing around.
If that's the case, it's got to be the least efficient charity on the planet.
Oh, yes. And in fact, most places, they want to see 95%
Right.
of the expenditures going into the charity.
And frankly, it's only fair. I mean, when you have two people with heads that big, you expect for a lot to go into overhead.
Yeah, but here's the problem. When you do have self-dealing going on, there is an excise tax of 10% of that value of self-dealing. And it's not to the charity, it's to the person who received the value of that quote-unquote self-dealing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
is that why they have to refile?
Well, no, that has to do with the charity by mislabeling things and whatnot. I mean, they said, well, we got some grant money. We included it with donation money and blah, 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 blah.
Self-dealing sounds really bad. I'm going to have a conversation with my son about it when he turns 12.
Yeah.
Let's
He'll get it. Believe me. He'll
Wait
get
a minute.
what self-dealing
Wait a minute.
is.
I think I got that. Catherine, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Walt. Zero-based budgeting, zero-based budgeting, zero-based budgeting. Why doesn't anybody do it in the government? Okay.
Oh, you probably have the answer.
I know. That's a rhetorical question, I suppose. As tax rates go up, corruption goes up, and a lot of countries have an incredibly high rate of tax avoidance. They also have very high tax rates, but they only have an incredibly small percentage of the people who actually pay the taxes, who actually put their hands in their pockets and pay. Italy and Greece are an example of that, right?
Yes.
And the amount of corruption in our country, in the bureaucratic level of the federal government, is astounding. A lot of it driven by the labor and the public sector unions. I could tell you stories that I have friends who work in the federal government. They work in HR, and the stories they tell about the kinds of things that people do while they're working. I mean, you can't even fathom.
Well, all you have to do is go to the $800 hammer at NASA. I mean,
well, this is even more so. This is like a gal didn't show up for work for 2 days, and when her supervisor asked her to if she was where she was, she said, "Oh, well, I was in jail." And didn't I tell you this story? No. She said, "Yeah, I was in jail, so I'd like to put in leave request for those 2 days." And her supervisor said no. And right now they're in arbitration. She got like a month with pay, which was negotiated by the labor union for her. She was in jail for felony, and she's still. I mean, this is what goes on.
So when does she announce for president?
I have no idea.
Hey, wait.
These are the kinds of things that go on in the federal government.
Right.
You have about 120 people who in the EPA who are still getting paid. They haven't been. That's going through arbitration again with the labor union. They've been spending their time, most of it, every day at work, surfing porn sites.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Catherine, we got to get one more call in. Thanks.
Okay,
thanks so much, and for depressing the heck out of me. I appreciate that. Tom, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'd like to revisit the fairness of various taxing procedures.
Okay.
And it kind of references Harry too, in a way. which would do away with tax deductions, is really the only fair way, in my opinion. I've beat this horse till it's been dead a million times. A sales tax, a national sales tax. Everybody pays tax, regardless. No deductions, no nothing. Bill Gates spends a ton of money on something, he pays tax. Person going out and buying cigarettes, they go out and pay their taxes too. The rich and the poor. Everybody pays a sales tax, and there's nobody there to regulate it. Nobody there to say, well, we don't believe that you only made $50,000 this year. We want your percentage of that. You prove that you made $50,000. We think you made $75,000.
Now, Tom, can I ask a quick question? And we only have 2 minutes left in the program, so we're kind of running out of time. Let's say I am an extremely wealthy person, and I don't want to, I don't want to pay this stinking national sales tax. So I am going to buy everything from China and have it shipped in surreptitiously, so I can get all the stuff I need and not have to pay your silly tax.
Well, that'll probably be tax fraud, and you go to prison.
No, it just becomes so much more expensive. I mean, some people will do that. Most people won't.
Okay.
You need a daily. You want to buy fresh lettuce? You aren't going to go to China. You know.
But anyway,
the
that's
groceries will be
exempt. Have a nice day, guys.
All right, thanks for the call. All right, so we have a minute and a half left. So, Mr. Walt Kero,
wrap
it up for us.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Clinton Foundation.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with working with foundations because I'm chairman of a board of a 501c3, and we've had some issues there and know what the tax rules are. But the thing that's going to be adding a little spice to this deal is all the foreign money. I mean, you have a foundation now that's got, it's received more than $1.78 billion with a B coming in there, and they're spending 10% on the actual charity work. Well, that opens up what we might as well just call it a boar's nest, because you got $1.6 million of assets.
And where is that? Where are those assets parked, and how much interest are they earning, and how is that being taxed?
Are they investing in certain businesses? Or are those businesses overseas? The whole thing smacks of quid pro quo. I'm not saying that it exists, but the conditions are right.
The appearance of evil. Right?
Oh, yes, right. Big time.
Well, how do we contact you?
549-2288. Yeah, we've got our website. Kero Byington and Associates is the name of the firm. We're downtown. We'd love to be able to help you minimize your tax bill.
We'll see you next month.
All right.
What's coming up tomorrow, John?
Exciting show. We have an Iranian lawyer, Daniel Akbari, will be on to tell you what you deserve the death penalty for.
Can't wait. Ooh. Have a great day.